right.
If you were to put a tag to this conference, would you say it is a constitutional conference? Because the assumption a lot of Nigerians had when this conference was going to start was that it was going to be a constitutional conference. So when it began to delve into matters of policy, a lot of people raised eyebrows as to what exactly they were doing discussing that.
No, again, I'm not sure whether, I mean, we have the right to put any tag you want to put on it, whether it's sovereign conference. I'm not listening to Ashru, was a bit again, academic, people were nominated, people were not voted for. I mean,
this is not about
no.
This is not just about the point of Dr. Ashiru. It's also about the point Colonel Ian made in terms of you being a constituent assembly. That at the end of the day, what you're hoping will happen is that this will go to a referendum. In which case, you would have been a constituent assembly. By inference, so to speak.
Yeah,
if that were the case, it would mean that whether or not we liked it, this was a constitutional conference.
No, I think let's put it this way. Let's call it what is being said it is. I told you I don't want to be more holier than the Pope. The president inaugurated this conference. He called it national conference, national conversation, national dialogue. I mean, those are the three buzzwords that were used.
So for you, you could discuss anything?
Yeah, and we discuss anything. I mean, that affect Nigeria, from broad issues. I've given you all the points. I mean, 500 recommendations, contentious local religion, we debated it. Labor issues, issue of employment, how to address and get this idle capacity to return back to work, reopen the factories that have been closed down, this is what I discussed. Women issues, a lot of gender issues came up, So we discussed them. But of course, all these discussions, they not throw up the challenges. Some are on issue of policy, which require implementation by the federal executive, state executives at all level. Again, we pass them to the president. Some have implication for constitutional amendment, because if you now say you devolve some power to the state, you need to make some amendment in respect of the constitution. Some also have direct implication even for legislation. And that's why it is clear that this is a complementary effort. It's not a substitute. Of course, there are a lot of Nigerians have different expectations. Some think this should be a sovereign conference above everybody. Again, that is wish. It's not the reality. So even some delegates also were too enthusiastic to think that we are more than what we are. I mean, certainly we are not parallel National Assembly. I mean, it is clear. I'm clear over that one. That what we need to do is to complement. And from the point of view of Labour, I mean, you don't forget that Labour has 20 delegates at this conference, of which I'm one. I mean, our own in NSC, ably led by Comrade Abuaid Omar. I also serve in the committee dealing on Labour, youth and sports. And we also made a lot of remarkable progress, in terms of consolidating on some of the gains Labour have achieved, such as the fact that Labour issues must be on the exclusive list of the Constitution. It's significant because if you put not concurrent, because if you put capital issues, and I think this conference was clear on devolution of power, issues dealing with capital, money, businesses, those who relate with, they're on the exclusive list. And for obvious reason, because these are two important factors for production and development. If you want to motivate capital resources, you must motivate.
Do you think if it's on concurrency, it will be handled better?
No. What I'm saying here is that, again, we are again academic with me. I'm saying that 500 delegates, close to 500 delegates, we've debated this, and we thought labor issues. It was clear that to drive labor for development, just like you need to mobilize capital for development, it must be on the exclusive list of our constitution. And that's it. Labour parties we also discover.
Shed some more light on that for those who didn't catch that part. I mean, why do they think that the states...
No, what we are saying, let me put it this way. I can start with a few issues. What are the labor issues? Labor issues include remunerations, include productivity, it includes pension, it includes even things like maternity. Am I communicating? It includes hours of work. Now, you must have minimum national standard for hours of work for your country. That means you work for every worker who have the right to work for 8 hours. That's the ILO conventions. Are you listening to me? Which we have ratified. Any other work you do after 8 hours, that shall be paid over time.
So is it that states cannot meet up with this obligation?
If you cannot, what I'm saying here is that if you allow it, everybody to determine his hours of work, some will put 20 hours, 15 hours, they will pay peanuts, including some foreign investors. Am I communicating you? Chinese, there are a lot of investors come. So the issue of hours of work must be exclusively to be minimum standard. Am I communicating for the country as a whole? You know, which means nobody can employ anybody to work more than 8 hours. If you do so, you must pay extra pay.
But even as it is now, it's a lot of challenge.
No, I get the point that that's the reality in our constitution now. If you now remove it, then you know that you are just going to promote slave labor because many employers will violate it worse than that.
No, but some will disagree because, look, states will not just be there because they know that people work in states. They don't work in a place called federal government.
No, again,
they're residents in states.
We are talking of Nigeria. Again, that's also the problem we had, even on the minimum wage. People, you know, government, they talk for themselves as if they are government. They are just employers. You also have huge, you know, employers in private sector. So labor law is not just to address federal employees and state employees. They are part of it. But you are talking of huge army of workers who work in automobile, in textiles, in chemical industries and co. So you need minimum standard to regulate their life. Am I communicating? If you don't have minimum pay for them, those guys will pay less than official minimum wage.
But have you not seen that even with this minimum standard, minimum requirement, you have states that are struggling to meet up with that?
No. Again, we also debated that even on public finance. Again, that's part of the issues. If you have allowed us to discuss extensively what the recommendation is, state government that pretend that they can, some state government, because some comply very well.
You use pretend?
No, I say pretense. You know, because we run the statistics, you know, that say they can't pay minimum wage. We also discover what the executive governors pay themselves. It's an open knowledge. Can you see? I mean, just recently we celebrated 10 years of the new contributory pension scheme. Only 4 states have complied. Lagos, Niger, 2 other states, which I can't remember, including Delta, you know, have complied. I mean, these are governors who have copied pension bills for themselves. Am I communicating? And if the amount of self-help, the kind of money they pay themselves, it's a public knowledge. Some collect close about 250 million per month for pensions. It's not that the money is not there. It's only that governors have defined states to just be their own executive privileges. You know, that's for the mass of their people. So what I'm saying here is that there must be minimum labor standard.
Mr. Aremu,
that should be strictly on the exclusive list of the constitution, and that one,
Mr. Aremu,
we want that battle at this conference, and most people agree to that.
A lot of people would take that minimum standard, but then we're also saying that we should devolve powers. We're saying that states should have the ability to explore resources a little more in their own states. They should have the ability, and we should be less dependent on what comes from, you know, oil and the Niger Delta, and so to speak. Now, in the same breath, if we're saying that states should be able to do this, then don't you think that states should also be determining how much they will be able to pay their workers as they start in this particular process?
No, we are not. What we are saying is that if you like, you can pay more. You should be able to pay more. There must be no minimum standard, you know, below which you cannot pay or you cannot guarantee.
Which will be determined as they go on, right?
Yeah, which they determine as they go on. I mean, recently there's a creative even issue from Lagos. I mean, I was really impressed that Lagos is talking of paternity leave. That's in addition to the minimum dealing with maternity for the country as a whole. So what we're saying is that you must have that minimum. And if you have minimum interest rate below which nobody can do so, that's for money, for capital. You must have minimum pay for the working people so that you can motivate them for development. So for me, in terms of strength, there are a lot of considerable achievements that have been carried out. Of course, there are some few what I perceive to be weaknesses, you know, in this conference.
Give us one, because we're out of time.
Yeah, the one I can really raise, you know, which again, rather people are a bit excited, the idea of returning back to old national anthem. I mean, that completely reflects even the age profile of most, because the nostalgia for the past, for me, doesn't make sense. I mean, that national anthem of the old is extremely very backward. We are defined in terms of the tongue and tribe. They talk of brotherhood. It's not gender sensitive. And interestingly, this same conference, that the second anthem, you know, we have adopted it as the second item of the current item as the national prayer. Okay, the one that is also
what other time on this?
Somebody even suggested that we should change the name of Nigeria. You know, I mean, my very good Michael Zakame, and I told him, I said, you came here as senior advocate of Nigeria. You can't be less than that. You can't be senior advocate of God knows what. I mean, some of them look so petty. But the real threat, the real threat with this conference is not so much, we've done the recommendations, is the misbehavior of the political class. I mean, you can't say we allow for all-inclusive citizenship, and then some state government are registering citizens as if they are from Ghana, from Afghanistan.
All right.
We have to match our recommendation with our practices.
All right. Thank you for coming on. We'll be back after this. Join us again. Interesting comments from everywhere here today on the program, but unfortunately we have to draw the curtains here at this point. But we thank you all for watching and keep your comments coming through. We appreciate them. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Thank you. I'm Maupe Ogun.
Well, many thanks. I'm Sulaiman Alede.
Bye now.